This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I will be welcoming back Daniel Neiden. I had him on this show back in 2018. We talked about They Still Call Me Bruce. This year, They Still Call Me Bruce celebrates 35 years. And I have a lot to update him on. I'm sure he's got a lot to update me on. We're going to talk about, some more stuff about this movie and information that I've found from talking to people like Bethany Wright and Wayne DeHart and stuff like that. And it's going to be a great conversation. Daniel is hilarious and he's a great guy and I like talking to him. He also did the voice of the lead character Dell in the 1992 low-budget cartoon The Toon, which is celebrating its 30th anniversary. And I can't believe I didn't bring that up last time, but we're going to talk about that as well. And it's going to be a great conversation, and I can't wait. Got to find out if Bollywood and Vine is finally going to be made. I remember he told me about that as well last time. And, we're in the middle of a little thunderstorm here in Reading. Hopefully the power won't be knocked out too much. I hope not. So, here is my new interview with Daniel Neiden. Hey, Daniel, welcome back.
How you doing, Tommy? What's going on?
Oh, not too much. Fall is here, and I'm a happy guy.
Good.
So
what was your summer like? I mean, you're doing recordings, you're doing what you do best, and all right, is that what you do every summer, or did you take time off? What's going on?
It's funny, I had thought about taking time off when spring hit, but I went a different way. I ended up being very busy with interviews. I did a lot of them. I got out and did some exercise because I recently got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes.
Oof.
Yeah. That's pretty awful.
But you responded to it. Good for you for responding to it. That's great.
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, because, when you get hit with news like that, you have to make a life decision, and I did. So there's no way that I was going to keep it hanging that way. But I went to the doctor last month, and my blood sugar went from 7.8 to 5.4.
Wow. The boy who lived.
Yeah.
Wow. That's great.
I got to keep it going.
Yeah, good luck. And it's all cheerlead for you. That's wonderful. That's good. Good on you, man. That's great.
Thank you so much. I've got so much to update you on. First off, can you believe it's been 35 years since They Still Call Me Bruce?
No, and there's so much of it that I remember, just crystal memories, because it was so much fun. That's amazing. Have you talked to people from the movie?
Yes. So I talked to Bethany Wright twice.
Wow.
The first time I talked to her was in February 2020, just before the pandemic hit. That was one of 4 interviews I have done that stayed with me for like a week, because it was really emotional, because we talked approximately 2 hours, and 52 minutes was about They Still Call Me Bruce. She really filled me in on everything she remembered. She had problems with a producer on that set. They didn't like her performance. They wanted somebody else. Johnny went to bat for her. They wanted her to get naked in that bathtub scene, and she refused, and Johnny had her back, They had a few disagreements on set, but nothing really major. But a month later, Johnny died.
Yeah, right afterwards.
Yeah.
No, he was very generous on set. He was one of those, like, I'm not that great with names, but there are people that are just kind of known for being, 100% on names. Like Jerry Lewis was someone that would work on a thing all day long and ask each person their name and look at them and make a little game in his head of their name. And then at the end, he'd line everybody up and tell each one their names. And they felt special because he cared enough to do that. Mm-hmm. And Johnny was the same way. And he would do things like I grew up in Nebraska. Mm-hmm. So he'd be like, Daniel from Nebraska, come over here. He would sort of have a little associative thing. He was very smart, really smart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I talked to the legendary comedian Tom Dreesen not long after I talked to you.
Wow. Yeah.
He's been on here 3 times overall. He and I got along great. He told me what happened to Johnny, though, because he was in the first They Call Me Bruce.
Ah.
And so,
Yes, he was. Yeah.
yeah. So he told me Johnny couldn't get arrested in Hollywood by the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
He married a very wealthy woman. They moved to Korea. She got him a talk show there. And about maybe 5-6 years ago, he got a stroke.
Oh.
Yeah. And, God, I mean, what an amazing story. It should be a book or a documentary.
Yeah, because he finally broke through, to where he was on talk shows and things, and then that happened. That's too bad. Too bad. He worked really hard.
Yeah, and then I talked to Jim Mendenhall's daughter, Francie.
Right.
I talked to her twice. I should have talked to her only one time. She's completely batshit. But I'll tell you, the first time we talked, it was really good. She told me that, there had been possibilities of making a third Bruce movie, but I guess Johnny didn't want to do it without Jim after he died.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, Jim. That was too bad when Jim died. His son, David, that was in it, was the kid. He was so sweet. Sweet boy.
Yeah.
Did you ever get to talk to him, to David Mendenhall?
No, there was a point where she was thinking about fixing it up and stuff, but then again, she was a little crazy, so no, it's probably not going to happen.
Okay. All right.
I did talk to Wayne DeHart, who played the Black Pimp.
Oh, God. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
We were, when I'd be on set, like there's this boxing ring, the big match with Matuzak. Who was the main guy, the bad guy?
You said that last time. No, it's Donald Gibb.
Who Gibb? Yes.
Yeah.
I always confused the two. And when I'm sitting working out stuff, and he was kind of in character growling, but he'd come over and he's like, "I see your brain working overtime. What are you coming up with?" And I'm like, "Do you think it's okay if I imitate Burgess Meredith and go I want you to eat lightning and crap thunder?" And he goes, "I'm not a lawyer, man. You can do it. Maybe they won't. Yeah, do it." So he starts egging me on, he's looking at me during the shot. He was not in the shot. They were on our side, the Johnny's side, and he's waving his hands like you would do it, he's miming eating lightning and crapping thunder, which was hilarious. Yeah. And so I come up to Bruce and the thing, and just sort of come into the frame. "Bruce, I want you to eat lightning and crap thunder," and walk away. And Johnny there's a thing actors do. He gave me the shot, he didn't move. They say don't move on a laugh line.
Yeah.
He let me do it, and he let me do it again, a few different takes. And that was the thing about him as a lead, because sometimes if you haven't cleared it with the lead as a comic to do something, mm-hmm. they don't like playing second banana. But when he was still, everybody else was still, and I got to do it and go out and it stayed in. I was surprised. It's nice when someone's generous like that. So that was part of his personality.
Yeah, Wayne doesn't remember a single thing about working on that movie. He did remember working on other movies. He told me he doesn't like Kevin Costner. He had a bad experience working with him on a movie once and all of that stuff. But and then, do you remember Carlos, who played Victor?
Yeah.
Okay, I got in touch with him. He didn't express too much enthusiasm about doing an interview. We still haven't done it. I mean, what was he like?
Everybody that was part of it, Johnny was. It's again, leads are a funny combination of people. There was nobody with a maternal paternal instinct to gather everybody and say, "I want your best lines. I want your best." Either that or the opposite. I've got this set, just do what you're told to do by the AD, by the assistant director. And Johnny never really did either. So you had to have like a kind of, and Joey Travolta and I talked about it, and we're like, we're just going to keep, making things up till they tell us, we'll look at the script and make sure it's somewhat germane. Oh, that's funny. That's okay. The word germane, we were in a meeting, a comedy meeting, to show him all of our stuff, and we talked about it, and Johnny goes, I don't like that word. And we're like, why? He goes, it just sounds pretentious. So every time anybody would say the word germane, Johnny would look at Joey and me like, you see, isn't it pretend? It was just, and that's just funny that I said it just now, because it was, we made sure that any ideas we were coming up with were germane. And then because they were, we could get them in as long as they had something to do with pushing the plot forward, like coming up to Bruce and telling him. But Victor didn't, I don't think he felt comfortable doing that. Most of the, what do they call the guys? The NAGs, the neighborhood action group that we were.
Yep.
Everybody was just sort of, let's wait and not move while Johnny's being funny, and that's kind of what we'll do. But if you watch it, I did crazy. I was on an exercise bike making a honking noise.
Yeah.
And they're like, do that again. And I'm like, why? And they're like, because it's crazy. Just do it. And so we would, they actually, the thing about the filmmaker, which I think was Jim Orr, he liked to end scenes with a button of some kind, no matter who was doing it. So that if they would say, oh, we gotta take care of business downtown, blah, blah, blah. And then they'd get me going, like, on the bike, doing some crazy, and that would be the end of the scene in the gym. He always liked to end scenes with a little bit of, what probably somebody would call comedy or hilarity or something. And I remember that, and it was Joey. If you look at the film, I love that he always had this look on his face. He'd kind of nod like, yes, there's wisdom there, yes, yes. And that was his hook. Was he's the older neighborhood action group like Curtis Sliwa or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'd go crazy, and he'd have that yes thing, and then that was pretty much. And if you turned the sound off on the movie, you'd see the frenetic one, me, and the wise one, him. And we talk about, like, we go back to the hotel, and we'd be really quiet because we were tired of this or that. And then in the middle of like the car ride, one of us would go, did you know what the fuck you were doing today? No, I didn't. Did you? No, I had no idea what I was doing. It was great. It was, he was like my best friend in the movie. Anything I wanted to try, he's like, I've got your back. I'll just be really still. And then I would do it for him. Whatever lines he had, I would look at him, not mugging, just look at him and let him. So we kind of made our own shots, they'd watch us rehearse it. And there again, if Johnny was in it, he wouldn't take it away from us. Because sometimes stars, they'll watch the good work and then they'll quietly tell the AD, I want that joke. And they're the star. That's where how come we're getting paid. So they're allowed to do it, right? Yeah. And he never did that. He never was like, don't do that. It'll be funnier than me. Because he could be at rest and he would just kind of give that. He could circle his eyes and look in a far off place. And he was a master comic. Yeah.
Do you know my favorite part in that gym scene is?
What?
When you do the Mary Tyler Moore theme.
Tell it to me. I gotta.
He's big. He's bad. He could turn the world on with his smile.
He can turn the world on with a smile. Yes. Oh my God, that got in there, didn't it?
Yeah, I can't believe they got away with it too.
Yeah, you'd think that like someone's lawyer would have called somebody, but and my sister Debbie, who lives in Houston where they were shooting it. She came on set during some of those things, and I do something crazy. And she's 6 years older than me, so she basically raised me like, she's the one pushing me around. Like if we're going to a movie, like don't eat your candy until the movie starts. Just like I really, an older sister that's kind of a mom as well. Mm-hmm. And she saw me doing this stuff like that, and I'd catch her eye. And she's just smiling, but she's slowly shaking her head like, I know all that crap you're doing. I know. dinner every night. That's exactly what you were like, you know, and it was so cool. It was so cool to just kind of be putting the insanity to work for like something that had, you know, structure to it. But yeah, that was great. I remember that now, though. You can turn the world on with it. Oh my God,
yeah.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah, and also I found Dana Conlin. She hasn't responded. I think it went to her spam folder. The message I sent her. Oh my God, she is gorgeous. I'll tell you, still gorgeous to this day. And I found Jim Grumbine, who played the Stallone impersonator. He still slightly looks like Stallone, but not quite. I mean, he's all gray now and older.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send him a message too.
You know what? Send me a picture. I'd love to see what he looks like now. Because Stallone, I mean, obviously Stallone's older, and I want to see how they've departed from that. Because you're right, he was was he a Stallone guy? You're absolutely right. I remember that. Wow.
Yeah, and Bethany told me that she remained in touch with Mark Gutierrez, the second assistant director on the film.
Nice.
She was in touch with him for a lot of years. She would have lunch with him anytime she was in L.A., but now he's got a huge career.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. Tell me some of the stuff he's done. I know he went on to keep working.
Oh, God, I have to look that up. I mean, he's got...
Well, yeah, we'll both look it up. We'll tell each other. Because I see you on social media anyway, so we'll keep this conversation going. That's great.
Yeah, and I remember the last time we talked, a week later, I saw that advertisement for Joey Travolta's autistic acting camp.
I love it. He's such a good guy. He is such a good guy. And remember who I told you he's married? If he is, I mean, I haven't talked to him, so this is at least who he was married to when we were working. Dick Shawn's daughter.
Is it Wendy?
Oh my God, what was her first name? Wendy Shawn.
Yes, because I sent her a message and it went to her spam folder because I wanted to get him on here. Yeah.
I've never. I should try to reach out. I have no idea where. I mean, I think in like an old, paper, like a notebook of an address book. I must have like an old 818 number in LA for him or something. I think they lived in somewhere in the valley there, not. I don't know where, but I believe it was an 818 number back then.
Yeah.
Before the 323s and stuff.
Here's some of the credits here. He worked on Terms of Endearment back in the day. He worked on RoboCop 2, Rich in Love. Oh, wow. Sin City, Planet Terror, Quentin Tarantino stuff. Wow. 310 to Yuma, the remake. The Friday the 13th remake. Yeah, he's done a lot of good stuff.
Wow. Look at that, man. Career makers.
Yeah. Oh, you remember Joycelyn Liu?
Yeah.
The script consultant?
These names.
Yeah, I'm gonna reach out to her. She's been in a lot of cult movies, and somehow she got to be a script consultant on this movie.
Yeah.
Because I saw her do a podcast interview recently, and she talked about the movie. So I'm definitely gonna reach out.
I wonder, when is has the movie actually aired anywhere? Is anybody broadcasting it, even like a retro channel or something? Does it, because, there are a lot of the channels or the channels that have cult movies, you'd think they'd want it,
It's funny. I haven't watched that much TV in years, and I have very minimal channels right now, but like the last time I saw They Still Call Me Bruce on TV, it must have been on USA Up All Night back in like 94, 95 or something.
Right. Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah. It's not even on DVD or Blu-ray, and it should be. Yeah, it should. Yes. I don't know. That's bizarre. We'll have to look that up and figure it out. God, I remember, but I'm really fondly remember it. And during the fight scene, they filled whatever that, I forget if they were using a coliseum or a stadium or something, but they had the boxing ring up, and then they actually had extras, and they really got into it. Like whoever the handler was for the extras, like, okay, you're going to root for so-and-so, now you're going to boo, now you're going to do that. I remember, like, because I'd been in enough background work and everything, and they were, I don't know, I'm sure they weren't getting paid for the day, they just came and did it, and they had the real spirit of the whole thing, it was lovely. Yeah. It was lovely. I hope I eventually get to find out what happened to Carl Benson and Lee Holmes.
Oh, look in the final when he wins the fight.
Mm-hmm.
I was. It's another thing if you watch the movie with the sound off, because the nags are right behind him in the corner, and he's sort of, basking in his victory.
Yeah.
And we're all like doing a thing like that, and I watched it, and I don't know what possessed me. It was and I'm sure it had something to do with Joey, but I'm barking. Everybody else is like, yeah, and I'm like, woo, 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 like Curly on the Three Stooges or something. It was. I'm like, what were you thinking? So it was a strange thing, but it was a free for all.
Yeah, I gotta go back and watch that at the end.
It's like when in doubt, bark.
Yeah, those two guys who played Spider and Gator, they were hilarious, and Bethany said they were really nice guys.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, do you remember interacting with them?
Yeah, well, they would. The scenes I was in with them, they didn't have much in terms of lines. They were doing more menacing, like they'd come in and we'd sort of get into the picture when they'd already threatened somebody. So then they're kind of looking at us like, you want a piece of me kind of thing. And so again, like I was saying before, it was, in my mind, it was their scene. So we would just kind of come in, stare at them, be intimidated by them. Then when they'd leave, if the camera was still on, I'd look at Joey, he'd give me that wise look, and I'd go, jeez. That kind of, it was just so Abbott and Costello, it was great. But that's why I keep remembering, just talking to you about it, I keep remembering that everybody was playing by the right rules, like I'm telling you, that everybody was behaving really, really well. Like whose scene is it? Okay, give them that. Yeah, you don't always find that.
Yeah. And of course, you got to mention J. David Moeller. He was just so great playing Slim.
Yes. Yeah, I was really struck by like I think I mentioned to you before, by the two cameos by Robert Guillaume and by Pat Paulson. Because they were Robert Guillaume, I mean, since I'm in New York and I've pretty much grown up in theater, I got to sit and ask him about when he was on Broadway and when, he did so much. This guy had an amazing career. And I don't know if you ever heard him sing, but he had just a killer voice.
Oh, yeah. I remember I saw him sing on an episode of Benson once, and it was hilarious.
Yeah, he really was good. He could imitate people, and the other thing was he could dance. Like, no one ever really used him in the dancing, but he was a triple threat, the guy. It was amazing. And so at the time that I was doing Bruce, living in New York, I was taken under the wing of people who a lot of them had been blacklisted, during, the whole McCarthy thing.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, do you know who Jack Gilford is?
Oh, of course, from Cocoon.
He sang at my wedding. Like, I was really, his wife was my mentor, and I'd go over and hear all about the blacklist and Zero Mostel and all of that. And so I conducted Jack's funeral because I do, Jewish, cantorial work and everything. So I conducted the funeral, and you know who the guest speaker was at his funeral? Was Milton Berle. And he named Jack Gilford because his given name was Jack Gelman. And he said to him, that's not going to work in New York. You're Guilford, because there was Guilford, Connecticut, but it's spelled Guil. And so he said, keep the U out of it, just Guilford, Gilford. So Milton named him. They lived up by Jerome Avenue in the Bronx. And Jack was both hilarious, and he could play tragedy really well and stuff. So I was really like into these, blacklisted actors, and the ones that were the socialists and people like that, and that had been blacklisted. And that I got to talk to Robert Guillaume about that, because he knew all of them too. Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee, they were friends of mine, and they were friends of his. I mean, they were at the time the two best actors in the country, no matter who you're talking about. Ossie and Ruby were it, and so that when he came to set, I just had a million questions for him. And then Pat Paulson, from Laugh In and Pat Paulson for President, if you're old enough to remember that.
Mm-hmm.
The guy was a cult figure, and he came to set, and he was a repository of, if you were to say, like, who was in the original, like, Buster Keaton movie, XYZ, he knew all the cast of all those things. He was just an aficionado of cinematic knowledge and everything, and TV stuff, and
right.
really, really good friends with Tommy Smothers, and very political, and gave a lot of the money he made to candidates and stuff. Like, he was a big activist. It was, they made a joke out of him of Pat Paulson for president because he had that deadpan face, but under there was a huge proponent of, he was always worried about the, quote, the little guy.
Yeah.
You can't have a program like that without remembering the little guy. What's going to happen to him? And high integrity. That was great.
And also, too, another one who had a cameo is Irma Hall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that wasn't anything to do with me. I wish it were, but I never met. Those were the only two that I got to meet.
Yeah.
Wow.
She's still out there.
I think,
she's still out there working. Yeah, she's in her late 80s.
Wow.
And also,
really?
Yeah, and also Dick Capri, he was the guy who's got the bedpost chained to him in the restaurant, when they're eating breakfast.
Yes. Yeah. He was a major comedian. Do you know that? I mean,
oh yeah,
in Vegas.
He's a Borscht Belt Catskills guy.
So a story about him.
Mm-hmm.
Freddie Roman created Catskills on Broadway. Freddie was the master of ceremonies at the Friars Club. After George Jessel, it became Freddie Roman's to do, and now his name escapes me. The guy that's bald, that's there, that's always, he's on all the Friars roasts and everything. And
it could be anybody.
And no, if I said it, you'd know it. Jeff. Oh, Jeff. His first name is Jeff.
Oh, Jeff Capri.
No. And so they did Catskills on Broadway, and it was Freddie, Dick Capri, Mal Z. Lawrence, who was the king of the Catskills.
Yeah.
And then I think the first one was it wasn't the one from The View. She went into it later, I think. But there was
Joy Behar.
Yeah, I think she joined later. But the original one, I'm trying to think who it was a female comic who was really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll think of it while we're talking. So at the time, my mom and dad visited New York from Nebraska, and I told Freddie they were coming, and they were coming for very, very sad reasons because she was dying of cancer, and they were going to go, and I had some contacts at Sloan Kettering, and so I was going to set them up for like kind of some second opinion stuff, even though it was pretty far along, and the kind of, she knew that, this was going to kind of be it. So here's what Freddie did. He goes, okay, you're going to, and I'd already told him that I bought 3 tickets for in good seats for, otherwise he'd have probably, given them to me. But I said, I bought the tickets. We're going to be there. And he goes, okay, during the standing ovation, which we always get, I want you guys to leave and go to the stage door at that point. And there will be a doorman waiting for you, and he's going to put you in my dressing room. And I'm like, you want us to leave during the curtain call? Yeah, because then you'll never get out of there. So leave during the curtain call. So the curtain call comes, and we left. We went. They were like, Daniel, right? I'm like, yep, come on. So the 3 of us, my mom and dad, Eleanor and Max, just perfect name for Jewish people. It was like Eleanor and Max. And we go, and they put us in Freddie's dressing room. And afterwards, in busts Freddie Roman. And he goes, Max, how do you deal with your son? He needs a haircut. And he's like ranking on me in a Friars style kind of thing. And they'd already been laughing for 2 hours. And they start laughing again. Eleanor, I got to tell you, your son is not much of a person. He's not this. And he's just going on and on. Dad, my dad was in the scrap business. He did 5 minutes on the scrap business because Jews in the scrap business and everything. And all of a sudden, after maybe 10 minutes of making them laugh, the door knocks. In comes Dick Capri. Does 10 minutes more, complaining about me, and we'd never met, but complaining about me and this and my mom, and what about Nebraska? Why Nebraska? Who would ever go to Nebraska? Jews aren't supposed to be in Nebraska, but Catholics, and he's going on about that, just doing more material. Knock, knock, knock. Then, her name just went out of my head, but the woman comes in, and Mal Z. Lawrence came in last, and he was, genius, brilliant of the things that he was saying. They're holding on to each other, laughing so much that they're crying. And I got to tell this story at the Friars when they honored Freddie before he died, that he didn't have to do that.
Oh.
He simply did not have to do that, did he? And he did. You know?
Yeah.
And the way that Catskills on Broadway ends is on a spotlight on Freddie, and he says, science does not always agree with religion, does not always agree with the spiritual world, does not always agree. And he named everything that you could kind of use as a way to run your life. He said, except on one thing. Laughter is a curing medicine. Laughter is a curing medicine. And he really, if you can look a whole audience in the eye, he says, of this, there is no argument. And that's what he did. That's what he did. They, the color was in my mom's face from laughing, and we went to dinner, and typically of comics, they both were like, we don't remember a single joke any of them said. They were just, it went right through them the way it's supposed to. But he did not, and as I said on the thing when I went to the Friars, what about these guys, these people that came from nothing? In some cases, English was their second language growing up. They were either Yiddish or Italian or whatever it was. And then they make it, and they're still generous. They're generous literally to a fault. And look what he did for my parents. Look at that.
Yeah.
I used to give him rides to the Catskills, because when I was up there, and I used to be at the Raleigh when he was at the Raleigh, and I was like, I wasn't a name of any kind, but I'd be on the bill with like a 10-year-old Savion Glover, or Stiller and Miro would come and do something, and Gloria DeHaven, different people. And I had my 4 songs that I would do and crazy things and stuff. And once in a while, I'd give him a ride, and he'd say, you want gas money or jokes? And I'm like, oh, jokes. I want jokes. And the whole way up there, he's given me jokes, and it was cool. So anyway, I hope that wasn't too depressing, but I thought it was a very beautiful thing.
No, that's a great story. Earlier this year, we lost some great comedians. We lost Gilbert. We lost Louis Anderson, Bob Saget. Did you see those guys in New York when you were working at the West Bank? Yeah.
At the West Bank, but also, I would go over to the Improv. West Bank is on 42nd and 9th, and the Improv was on 44th and 9th. So I'd go over there when it was kind of early in the evening, and they're all sitting at the bar. There's Gilly, there was Ron Darien, there was Rick Overton, who John Means, who he knew all these guys. There was they would always wait for Robin Williams to come in, because none of them got along with him very well, because he just had a natural tendency to sometimes take people's material and do it on television. And there's the rules on those things are such where if you're going to hurt people, don't do it. But he was sometimes he did that, and so they would hang out in the corner together. And what's the guy? What's his name? The guy from, I think it's one of the Law and Order shows. Oh,
Belzer.
Belzer is if I had a question like, who was the guest on the 3rd episode of Flip Wilson, they would be like, ask Belzer, and he'd be like, what do you want? Who's on the 3rd episode of Flip? He'd go, well, Tommy Smothers came on, and then it was so and so and so and so, and then go back to talking to. He had one of those like Mary Lou Henner memories that and he also knew, like, if I told you a joke like, an old man goes into a ladies' room and someone goes, get out of here, this is for women only. And he points to himself and he goes, don't scream, so is this. He would know who said that joke first. He would know who started it, then who came up with it, who repeated it, the etymology, the evolution of a joke.
Yeah.
He would be like, oh, that's Patsy Abbott from Florida. You're like, what? She wrote that? How do you even know Patsy Abbott? Well, everybody knows Patsy Abbott. She had Patsy's Place. And, it opened at 11 o'clock at night and closed at 4 in the morning, and Blue Comics worked there. So it was, this guy was amazing to hear him talk. Everything was an education. But I'd go to the Improv, and there, they'd be, and I'd walk in, and at the time I was, slim with like black curly hair, and one of them, like Gilbert, would go, oh, I loved you in Cruising, like the Al Pacino thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck off, Gilly. What you want to, and I'd say, who wants to come over to the West Bank I'll give you to be the MC for the whole night. Once you get done on your set, come over and I'll give you like, $30 and 2 drinks, which was a lot in '79. That was actually a lot of money. And they, I'd get somebody, but I learned really quickly when Andy Kaufman was there, he's like, I'll do it. And I'm like, okay. And either he would never show up or he wanted half up front and he'd still never show up.
Oh my God.
He was a free spirit. He was a very free spirit.
Yeah. Paul Provenza?
Oh God, brilliant.
I saw him do a podcast recently where they were talking about Gilbert, and he said first time he ever saw Gilbert ever in his life. Gilbert went up there and his first joke was, I saw Jackie Onassis at a party and I went up to her and as an icebreaker I said, where were you the day JFK was shot?
Yes. Oh my God. The thing he did that was it was, the most legendary thing he did was, the Aristocrats, which you saw, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So he had this thing he would do, and the owner, Silver Friedman, and Silver and Bud Friedman, when they split, she took the Improv in New York, he took the Comedy Club in LA. That was and that's where you could always find her. And she didn't like it when somebody would come in and do one bit for their like 12 or 15 minute set because it would always exhaust the audience for whoever the next poor schmuck was that had to follow somebody trying. Like when Andy Kaufman would get up there and just read the want ads. He would just get up there and make fun of them. But it was just like, if that's all he's going to do, it was taking a big chance, So Gilbert got up one night, and I noticed that all the other comics were crowding and looking from the back of the bar like they knew what he was going to do, but nobody was telling on him. And he goes, this is crazy. He goes, any Jewish lady, he didn't even say thank you when they applauded him on, just any Jewish lady asking directions in New York City. And then I promise you, for the next 15 minutes, this is all he did. How do you get to 93rd Street? I know that, but how do you get there? Yeah, but how do you get to 93rd Street? I know that, but how? How do you get to 93rd Street? I know that, but how do you get there? I know that. How do you get there? I know, but how? It kept on. And so the audience was like laughing a lot, and then it would die out, and then they're laughing even more because of the guts to keep on doing it. And then the booing would start. And then when he wouldn't stop, the booing would turn back into applause. And it was like a lesson in audience, Mm-hmm. And then finally they were cheering him on. Like, how long is this? Like a Guinness Book of World Records of this? What was it? It was astounding. I don't know if it was great, but it was astounding. It was amazing.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Do you have a John Means story?
So if anyone was to, John Means is also Dr. Gonzo, and he opened for legends. He was a comic with a guitar. I went to college with him, and he was always a combination of anything that included the word sweet. Yeah. He was always sweet. And yet if it was impish or if he was pushing, because, you're still at a school and there's, you couldn't have this and that on stage. Even if he was pushing envelopes, he was always the sweet guy, that could do it. But you ought to hear his comedy songs. He also could memorize like the funny things people would say. He was a really good reteller among friends. Like if you go out to coffee, of the structure of people's stuff. He's got a comic mind and his construction. And he had this relationship with Huey Lewis because he'd open a guy with a guitar opening for a world-class band. Yeah. And he'd really get the audience primed. He was so good with audiences that have you talked to him yet? Have you had your interview with him?
I had John on right at the beginning of the pandemic, and oh my God, we really hit it off. He was impressed by my comedy knowledge, especially Bay Area comedy, because I did it for 10 years, And he told me something I will never forget. He said he was having a Twitter war with some girl, and he said to her, "There's two sides to every story, and you're a cunt on both sides."
Yep. When he puts the hammer down, that's amazing. But see, but when you're funny doing it, if you can flame somebody and still be funny, she probably ran off and told all of her friends, "Guess who told me off, man?"
Yeah.
Like, because he has that way about him. It's just it's a gift. Oh God, I gotta call him and tell him I did this. This is gonna be great.
Yeah.
Dr. Gonzo, Dr. Gonzo.
He is such a funny guy, because I remember seeing him. He was the guy that hands Huey Lewis the ball in the music video where he's at Santa Cruz.
Right.
The video for This Is It. I always wanted to know who that guy was, right? And I always used to hear the name Dr. Gonzo, but I didn't have a face. But then when I found out that was him, I was like, oh, I got to reach out to him for an interview because he's comedy history in the Bay Area.
Yes, he is. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's one of those things of if I wanted to get in touch with someone for like a benefit or something that he doesn't mind sharing. He's really great with sharing information and always kind of knows who's doing what and everything. And you'll be on the phone with him and just, it's like, I don't know if the word chuckling, when to chuckle has gone out of the vernacular, but he's just one of those where I'm smiling the whole time I'm talking to him, chuckling away. Mm-hmm. It's great. It's just great.
Let's talk about the tune because it turns 30 this year, and I didn't realize that you were the voice of Del. I remember seeing it years ago, so I'm curious to know, how did you get involved with that?
So Bill Plimpton, mm-hmm. who is an animator of a certain kind of style, Plymton, Plimpton, Plympton. Right. He has a style where it kind of looks like it's strobing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and he does these real surreal cartoons. And he started doing these small music videos, like Your Face. He found this woman, Maureen McKelleran, was an amazing songwriter and really got Bill. So she'd write these kind of, there's a lot of arcane stuff under the ice, that the lyrics can be both beautiful, but if Bill draws it weird, the lyrics hold up to the weird as well. She was really good with Bill. And he did like Your Face as a single short, like the length of a music video, and it won Sundance as best short. I don't know if it was just short animated or just short film, because they were world-class stuff. And here it is, like this, master thing. I don't know if they had an animated. You should check if they have an animated competition or if it's just short film, period. But anyway, he won that. And then next Sundance, he'd come back with Push Comes to Shove, of these two guys, punching each other, and it escalates to where like one of them puts a bomb down the other one's throat, and it goes boom, and he expands, and then they go back to normal, and they're just back and forth. That won Sundance. So he had this body of work, maybe 4 or 5, I don't know, maybe one of them got nominated for an Oscar for best short animation, I guess. Mm-hmm. And his plan was, because each one was so different than the other, was he was going to put it all together like an Alice in Wonderland. If you look at Alice in Wonderland, you got the tea party, you got the croquet game, you've got the off with her head cut. It's all different styles and different humors and colors. So to tie it together, he created Del, this orange-haired, chubby guy that has to write a hit song in, I think, 47 minutes, or he's going to get fired by Mr. Mega, the head of the record company. Mm-hmm. And the woman that works for Mega, Del is in love with, but doesn't really have the nerve to like ask her out. He flirts with her, and so he's driving home, and he ends up in kind of another world, and he meets the two guys, Push Comes to Shove, and he's asking everyone he meets, what do I do? How do I write a hit song? Where am I? This doesn't look normal. He meets The Wise One, which is another film that Bill won Sundance with, and The Wise One comes up with just all these platitudes but no answers, and at the end you see Del's face and he's like, what just happened? So it's really like this kind of almost like a drug-infused journey that he goes on. And at the end, with everything that he's encountered, it helps him realize that he's in love with the girl, and he tells off Mr. Mega, and he says, Mr. Mega, you may be the, I don't know, #1 in the music business, blah, 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 but and he kind of sticks up for himself, like a nebbish sticking up for himself. And that's when he gets the song he was trying to work on. It. He finishes it because he tells the girl, my love for you is equal to, and then he comes up with all these ooh rhymes, gum on my shoe and and then my love for you is equal to all get out, my love for you. It's really cool. So, the Bill, I think I met him through somebody, and he was going to have auditions. And I lived on 28th and 7th at the time, and he lived on 25th and 7th. And Bill is great. He kind of talks in this, hey, Daniel, how you doing? Yeah, come on over. Just come over. I know you don't have to send a picture. Just bring something with you and come over. And I spent time looking at Del, and Del had this round mouth the way Bill was drawing him. And I just started going, ooh, 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 oh. And he's like, yeah. That's Del. What about this? And he showed me a picture of Del with his angry, and I'm like, I don't know. And I just kind of kept doing it. And I mean, I'd done voiceover work and animation work for other things and stuff like that. So you kind of know what an animator. So he just said, would you want to play Del? And I'm like, yeah. And then I found out one thing about Bill Plimpton. He only does one take of everything. Mm-hmm. So if you don't like what you did, you have to screw it up on purpose. So he'll have to do it again, because if you get through the whole sentence, it's over. He's going on to something else. And I learned that really quickly. So, and so did everybody else that worked with him. Yeah.
I'm surprised it's not a Comic-Con sensation, that no one's asked to do panels for it or sign autographs at Comic-Cons.
He has been. I've seen him at Comic-Con. I've gone to visit him, and Bill self-produces.
Okay.
So he didn't need, or he didn't want, maybe is the more of the thing. He didn't want when before Lionsgate. I forget what the owners of that had, but they were remember the book? There's a very cool book called, I can't pronounce the whole thing, but Spike and Mike and something and something.
Oh, yeah.
And it was all about.
I remember Spike and Mike. I used to watch those cartoons.
Right, but this is more like Spike Lee and Mike. It was the pioneers of indie film. It's a really cool book. I own it. I'm trying to remember the title of it, but it's got the 4 names: Spike, Mike, somebody, and somebody. When that movie I Shot Andy Warhol came out, it was really a good bunch of years where Todd Solondz was doing his stuff, and Bill self-produced, and he was like, you want the film, in Berlin, we'll do a contract, you and me. He really placed his stuff around the world. He's really good at that. So I don't know, and it was on Liquid Television on MTV when that hit the scene and stuff. And I don't know if he ever made a bigger deal with Showtime or USA Network or any of those things, but I wish he would, because his body of work, when you realize he's got a full-length animated musical drawn by one man. Think of that.
Yeah.
That'll never happen again. It's never happened before. No. Because he's strung together all these short films. So by proxy, it's a full-length animated feature drawn by one man. And that should go very noticed. But I think he just kind of stays in his own lane, doing his own stuff. Mm-hmm. But I'll get you his number, because I'll bet you could. You should talk to him with the tune being 30. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to put you guys together.
Yeah, I'm more comfortable taking emails, because I've heard horror stories from other podcasters about taking numbers. There's a guy I know.
I'll give you his email. Yeah.
There's a guy I know. He has a podcast completely dedicated to comedy, and somebody he interviewed put him in touch with Mary Lou Hender with her number. Oh, she screamed at him and then hung up on him because she wasn't aware that the number was being given to her.
Yeah, I worked with her at the Burt Reynolds Dinner Theater. Robert Walden, who was on that show, Lou Grant.
Yeah.
He and Mary Lou did They're Playing Our Song, and she sings beautifully. I mean, she was in one of the, I don't know if it was the original, but she was on Broadway in Grease, the original, when the first time it was on Broadway. And she is friends with Travolta and this and that. So I remember all these people coming through at the Burt Reynolds and stuff like that. And she's super strong-willed and very, it'd be an understatement to say that she takes care of her business really, really well. So if she was angry, she probably had a reason and stuff. But I think she would be a good interview because you know about her and her memory, right?
Oh yeah. In fact, I'm sure if you brought that up to her, she'd remember it.
That's funny. But she can remember, so much, and she makes she's gone on, let's say, more than just cruise ships, but she's gone into places and done, amazing shows with her memory and how that all works and stuff. Yeah. But
do people still quote earsies weirsies to you?
I'm sorry. Do they what?
Do people still quote earsies weirsies to you?
From the tune?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got that cell. Bill gave me a couple of the cells from the movie where Del is tied up in his own phone cord. How's my little earsy weirsies? How's my little, that kind of thing. Love muffin, yes. And I always heard whenever I would do Del, there was a little bit of Carol Channing in him. Mm-hmm. Yes, well, how's my little earsy weirsies? And he gave me the cell that actually has him tied up in there, and then he spins, and then he looks like what happened. There's 3 cells, which are lovely that he gave me that just from that scene. That's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's a good movie. It's really it's so admirable. And one guy does that. It's crazy.
One guy.
No, never let. Yeah. But on cell animation, that's the difference. Mm-hmm. Now you could do it on what are the programs that people have, the studio art kind of stuff. But this is on cells, on him painting them, coloring them himself. So if you can imagine how many cells per minute or per second go, that's the big Everest here, that he did that all by himself.
Paul McCartney recorded his first album completely by himself, all instruments, production, everything, because, everyone was such in a comfort zone with the Beatles that he had to really prove himself, and he did.
Yeah. Every so often someone will come along who they were one thing or associated with. Do you know who else does that? I don't know about playing every instrument herself, but Beyonce.
Okay. Prince did that.
Prince does, but he was known from the get-go for that. She was with Destiny's Child, so therefore she might have been written off as a girl group. Mm-hmm. And I have people that are deep into the music business who said, you got to listen to her. She produced this herself. She, the editing is her. She never sleeps, kind of thing. And that's why she is where she is. But half the thing, it's just people have grooved on her stuff for so long that I don't think they know the talent level of what she contributed to her success.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's amazing.
So is Bollywood and Vine going to get made finally?
I don't know. We're raising the money, and it takes a long time, and there's a lot of rules in Bollywood. But what it is a, if you will, it's an international project where it's an American piece. It's a musical that I have with 2 other people, Edward Jordan and June Rachelson Aspa. And we had this musical for a while. Then when COVID happened and theater was really kind of paralyzed here, we made a screenplay out of it and sent it off to India because they were still cooking and working and everything. And there's a company there that expressed a lot of interest in it, but to put the money together to do it on a soundstage in India. Again, it's all in English. It's a story. You remember Creature from the Black Lagoon, of course, right? Of
course. I met Julie Adams before she died.
There.
Yeah.
So you can't imagine the creature without the beautiful woman in his arms screaming, right?
Right.
So imagine that there's a character, again, fictitious, but imagine that person was also in the arms of the gorilla with the space helmet, the Beast from Beyond. Imagine that same person was in all the different, anytime there was a girl in rags screaming, imagine that she did all those movies and never had a line in a movie. Did 50 films, never had a line. But in this case, we'll call her Delilah Lee. Delilah Lee came from the original movie by Edward Jordan himself, was just a straight film, no songs. And he created Delilah kind of out of thin air. If you look up Sky Aubrey, based on some of the elements of Sky Aubrey, who was a dear, dear friend of his, like a life friend, someone who was just in everything, like Zelig. She was everywhere. You look at a group picture, she's in it somewhere. She's married to, her husband at the time, produced Superman, and then she was married, like she's one of those Hollywood people that was everywhere and made the room better by just walking into it. So, and in New York as well. So he based Delilah Lee on her. And so you imagine this woman, then at the twilight of her career, she didn't want to be yelled at in grocery stores by fans going, blah, because she would scream in movies. Yeah. So now she's like a butch waitress at IHOP. And she's happy. She's happy not being in the public eye. She's so happy to be out of it. And she has a son from whom she knows not where. Just somewhere along the way in working, like she says to him, she goes, I don't know where you came from. Maybe on Dark Shadows, because the set was really dark. It might have been there. I don't know. But, she knew she wanted a kid, so she kind of manifests that to happen. And she's got this beautiful boy. And one of his characteristics is she has all her old turbans and gowns, and he dresses up in all of her old stuff and looks just like Delilah when she was his age. And that's a big part of the plot.
Nice.
So it goes on to that a boy from Bollywood, from India, comes to Hollywood to find her. It's the year 2000, and bring her back and make her a star, and ends up through different ways falling in love with the son who's dressed like her. So it's kind of like who's who in this whole thing, and that's pretty much the main part of the plot. There's some other really cool stuff as well. So it's ready to go. There's songs, this and that. We're just going through a lot of what you might call terms and conditions and trying to get the thing, ready to happen. But I have full confidence it's going to. And we've got some, letters of intent from people that want to be in it. But the one that I'm most proud of is that we might get a cameo by John Waters. He's expressed some interest, and I've met him before. And he can, just hearing that he might be part of a project, it turns heads. He's just the coolest guy, and look at his legacy already. He's a big, important part of where we've all come in, not just the film world, but the icon world, the world of our culture, what our guilty pleasures are and stuff like that. He's been such a big part of the kitsch part of our lives,
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Are you still going to have Kathleen Turner in it?
Well, she's probably is going to be a lot of like dancing and this and that. I don't think she's doing all that stuff right now. I know that she was busy on Michael Douglas's, what was the name of that show, where he's the acting teacher?
Oh, I don't know.
He was on it with Alan Arkin, and she's still maybe doing that. I don't know, but it's taken a long time, and I think that she gave us a lot of very, very generous time. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure she's really waiting around for us. Okay. But it was good while I was working with her. It was wonderful. She sang through some of the demos for us and everything. And she's a force. She is an iconic force in every way. I mean, just hearing her kind of read through the script, you're like, wow, this woman has such bearing.
Yeah, I've heard stories. I forgot to mention before, I own 2 copies now of They Still Call Me Bruce.
Are they different in any way?
Yeah, so, okay, the first copy was New World Pictures that I owned back in the day, and I got another one, a couple years ago, and the tracking wasn't really good on it. It's mainly because my VCR was old, so I got a new VCR. But to be safe, though, I got another copy. It's from Star Maker Video. That was the bargain bin company that like took all the New World movies and sold them. And they look like that they were recorded off of HBO or something. They got
Right.
they got the different speed. So I got them now in my possession and I cherish them.
That's great. Was the cover of him on a bull?
Yes.
Riding like a longhorn bull or something like that?
It sure was, yeah. And he only does it for that, one short moment in the movie at near the end.
Yes. Yeah, that was great. God, that was something. Well, wonderful. Let's keep doing this.
Yes.
Let me know when you want to talk again, and I'll. I think I remember so much about both those projects because they were fun.
Yeah.
And they were nothing laborious about them. Plus, I was in a position not to have to, worry about the producerial side of things and stuff. And it was just a blast. And you also got me thinking, like, I'm going to go try to find Joey and see what he's up to. Talk to him because we'll fall back into our old goofiness.
Yeah, I mean, God, I like what he's doing. Helping the kids like that. I saw an interview he did where he said, he wished he had done it 30 years ago, but his wife told him, he wasn't ready yet, and now he's doing it.
Great. Well, I'll see if I can help him, because, when you really put yourself out there for something like that, a camp or do whatever it is, you always need, you always have a wish list, and so I hope somebody does some publicity about it so people can help him.
I hope so, too, and... Thank you so much for coming on again, Daniel. I hope your cough clears up soon.
Yeah, it was that COVID thing, and you end up with like a little nervous, like a hack, which in our business is never quite a good word, but hey, it is what it is, and so I got my hack, it'll pass. But your generous spirit, I got to tell you, man. I mean, that you do this and you do it so well.
Thank you.
Don't stop. If it makes your tail wag, man, keep just interview after interview if it makes you happy to do it, because this is on record, and it should be, because most of our business, as much as there's the internet where you can read everything and this and that, there's nothing like oral history.
Nothing like it, especially since there's hardly anything written about this movie on the internet,
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to I wanted to let the people know about it and stuff, because it's such a great movie that's so underrated.
Did you ever read this guy that used to review movies with the PBR rating, the Pabst Blue Ribbon rating?
No.
Do you know what that is?
No.
There's a guy that early on in the internet, this guy, how many beers it took him to get through a bad movie. He would find movies that were considered annoying cult classics kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And so I think he had a 5 or 6 PBR, right? Mm-hmm. They Still Call Me Bruce was the only movie that he said he'd given like a 30. And my performance was this. And again, I mean, there is no bad publicity, and it made me laugh that he went to the trouble to gather up words to describe how much he hated this thing, because it was still the fact that he put the review out there. It's like, I think he's playing along, but he wanted to be Mr. Critical kind of thing. And he said, my performance made him want to stick forks in his eyes so he never had to see another movie again. And I wore that with pride, my friend. I loved that. It was like, if you're going to get a review, just dig into it and love that. So if I don't even know if you can find them online, but it's a PBR, Pabst Blue Ribbon, PBR rating for They Still Call Me Bruce. And I think if you can find him, I think he's just really a very funny guy, so you'll appreciate it.
If you can handle a review like that, I will definitely check out the others.
Yeah, I mean, who cares? It's like, like they say, don't read them if you're not going to read the bad ones too. Don't, and I never do. I mean, I learned from, like those blacklisted people, I learned from people much older than me. Reviews are not for actors to read. They're for people to decide if they want to go see a show.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah. What are we going to do with them? We use a little ellipse, Neiden was confusing as the fool. Like, who cares? Who cares? So, I don't know. I feel like I want to, be a critic just for a month and review everything with like when we were talking about Jermaine before,
Yeah.
I want to use words that are like jejune, like that send people to their goddamn dictionary. What the hell is that? Like it just, it would be great to just go, really ill-used Victorian words or Latin or something. It would be so much fun to review something with language that nobody could use to either exonerate themselves or argue with,
Yeah.
Like, really, you saw a National Lampoon movie and you use the word veritas? What the hell's the matter with you? That kind of deal. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Daniel,
all right, man.
Daniel Neiden, be safe out there.
Tommy Kovacs, I appreciate everything.
Kovac.
I'm telling you, I appreciate it. Kovac, I appreciate everything you do. And the way that you do it and the care with which you do it. And it's always like I feel like we went to school together. It's that kind of thing. Yeah. Your bedside manner is excellent, man. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you so much. My pleasure. And have a great night.
Good. See you see you in the mix.
See you in the mixed.
All right. Take good care. Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Daniel Neiden. Ain't he a cool dude? I just love talking to him. He is so awesome. And I'm glad we got to talk more about Bruce, talk about the tune finally, and lots of great stuff. Comedians. He's a great conversationalist. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.